I'm Maria, and this is the Agile State of Mind. Welcome! So, am I a Scrum Master, or an Agile Coach, or maybe a Kanban Master, or Lean Ambassador? So, I got a question in the comments below my latest video, Kanban Starter Kit, about the role of a Scrum Master in Kanban teams. Darby asked me to share some experience about the role specifically for Kanban. And some time ago, I got a comment from Sai below the Don't Sweat the Estimations video about the role of Scrum Master. He was explaining that in his company, Scrum Master role is just a hat that one of the developers wears half a time of his work. So he wanted to give a few anecdotes to help the managers see the role as valuable for the companies and invest in a Scrum Master that can dedicate 100% of their time to the accountabilities. So today, I'm going to revisit the Scrum Master role, or better said, accountability, as per Scrum Guide 2020. And let's talk a little bit how we can translate the Scrum Master role to a Kanban world. All this makes me want to talk about the Agile Coach role, but I will leave the Agile Coach role outside of today's episode and we'll make a dedicated episode about the role because there's just so much to talk about. So today, let's focus on what is a Scrum Master in Scrum and how we can translate it to the Kanban world. Let's go! So who is a Scrum Master? The Scrum Guide says that the Scrum Master is accountable for establishing Scrum as defined in the Scrum Guide. Easy, isn't it? Not only are the Scrum Master's accountabilities described in each time less prescriptive Scrum Guide, but also there are various certifications and courses to help you become one. I am not going to enter into certifications topic as that's a topic for a series of videos probably. Let me just say that the professional Scrum Master course and exam were very helpful and eye-opening to me. However, and of course there's a however in the certification topic, I know many great Scrum Masters who haven't got any certification, yet they have a great agile mindset which they established with their own hard work. So, when I was doing research for this video, I watched some videos on the internet about Scrum Master, especially versus the Agile Coach role. And it struck me how many people define the Scrum Master role as some kind of a junior Agile Coach who works only with the teams and has no access to the larger organization. Let's see what Scrum Guide has to say about it. In the newest Scrum Guide, you can read that Scrum Masters are true leaders who serve the Scrum team and the larger organization. And this Scrum Guide wanted to emphasize that we, the Scrum Masters, are leaders. And those leaders serve the Scrum team, the product owner, and the larger organization. Mostly it's anything that has to do with the Scrum implementation, training, and coaching the teams in their Scrum adoption to empiricism and how to approach the complex work. Scrum Guide says that basically you need to do everything that's described in Scrum to be doing Scrum, otherwise it's not Scrum. But Scrum can also serve as a container for other techniques, methodologies, and practices. That's why we can frequently hear about Scrum with Kanban or Scrum with user stories and pair programming. Those are all the elements and practices we can add to our Scrum framework. Okay, so now we have the Scrum Master accountability as described in Scrum Guide a little bit more clear. Let's move on and see if we can find some answer to Darby's question about the Scrum role on a Kanban team. So I made some research on the Kanban guides. So in my last video, the Kanban Starter Kit, I talk about Kanban method as described in Essential Kanban Condensed. but David J. Anderson. And I don't mention the roles at any moment. Well, because in theory, there are none. Essential Kanban Condensed says Kanban is and remains start with what you do now method, where initially no one receives new roles, responsibilities, or job titles. So there are no required roles in Kanban, and the method does not create new positions in the organization. However, after what I just quoted, there is a however. And they name two roles: Service Request Manager and Service Delivery Manager. And those roles are described as hats that people wear while carrying other functions. The first hat, Service Request Manager, is very similar to the product owner accountability in Scrum. And the second role, Service Delivery Manager, oh my god, those roles are so unsexy, aren't they? That's why probably we don't use them, and we prefer to say there are no roles in Kanban. But anyway, the other role, the Service Delivery Manager, is very similar to Scrum Master. But to make them a little bit more sexy, we can call them Flow Manager, Delivery Manager, or Flow Master. Now I feel better. And this person is responsible for the flow of work in delivering selected items to customers and for facilitating the Kanban meeting and delivery planning. On the other hand, the Kanban guide published in December 2020 by Daniel S. Vacanti talks only about Kanban system members and defines no roles whatsoever, not even a however. He's not even prescribing a daily meeting as mandatory. Just a fun fact. And this might seem very flower power at first sight, but I take it as an intent to be as little prescriptive as possible and giving the Kanban system members the freedom to self-organize and manage their own work. Okay, so now we established that apart from the Flow Master, which is an additional or after, however, there is no roles in Kanban. So how can somebody help Kanban teams to improve their ways of working? To my understanding, the coach can do precisely that. Help the teams implement the necessary practices. Because the teams might not be fully aware of all of them. They might think they are doing Kanban, but in the end they do some kind of intent on Kanban. And even if the teams learn and know the practices, they might not even know where to start and how to implement them in a way that will be effective. I found 3 mentions of a word must. So 3 things that Kanban guide prescribes as necessary to be doing Kanban. So as coaches, we could focus on those first. Number 1, we must create a definition of workflow with the described elements as per the guide. And 2, implement and respect the work in progress limits, which basically means to control the work in progress. And they say Kanban system members must explicitly control the number of work items in the workflow from start to finish. The third must is mentioned in the end note to highlight, just like in Scrum, that implementing only parts of Kanban is not Kanban. And the minimum set of practices, measures, and the spirit of optimizing value must be preserved. To those 3, I would add a 4th one, and that would be to implement metrics. They are also described in the Kanban guide. So what do we do as coaches in the teams irrelevant of the framework they follow? So in practice, it means facilitating the meetings, at least up until the team takes the ownership and they can take over also the facilitation of the daily meeting and the retrospective. Next is to coach the teams on good practices, not only of Scrum or Kanban, but also, as I mentioned, extreme programming, DevOps, any other agile or lean practices and techniques. Then our daily job is also to create trainings and workshops, create user story mapping for the teams to help them discover what they will be implementing and understand the big picture and not only the part that they will be doing. So basically helping the teams in their daily work and understanding and learning the practices so they can change the habits that don't help them and replace them with the new ones that help them improve in their daily job. And last but not least, as I mentioned, I would say that coaching about the metrics, how to measure if any practices that you are implementing is actually helping the team or holding them back. This way, they gain some objective data on what is helping them and what is not. Because in the end, the sad goal of our role is to become not necessary, is to help the teams up until the point they can do stuff on their own because they understand the why behind everything they do and they see the value in the practices, right? Right. So there are many ways for us, the coaches, mentors, or teachers, to help the teams to be more effective and efficient at work. I think in the end, it's irrelevant how we call the role. What is relevant though is to have a goal behind the role. Probably at your work, you have some goal setting moments defined, and that's the most important thing. The job description that you are fulfilling in the company and the goals that you want to achieve with the teams that are outcome oriented. It can help you define what best tools and practices you can do to reach those goals. And that's all for today. I hope this video has brought a tiny little bit more clarity to the role of the Scrum Master and also how Scrum Master can help teams doing other frameworks like Kanban, wanting to implement other practices and tools that come from Agile and Lean world. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.